Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Thank you all for joining me for this live presentation on Facebook and elsewhere. On the tafsir of the Quran tonight, we are dealing with Surah Al-Baqarah, starting with the 254th verse. We are going to look tonight at some section of Surah Al-Baqarah, starting with the mentioned verse, a section that deals with some core beliefs for the new community of Muslims as they were formulated in Medina at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So let me begin by praising our Creator and Fashioner, the Creator of the heavens and the earth. I ask you, Ya Rabb, to send peace and blessings upon all of your prophets, your messengers, all of the righteous servants of yours throughout time. I ask you to bless our meeting here tonight and bless all of the people who are joining us here in the Toronto area via Zoom and around the world through Facebook and YouTube. I ask you to protect them all, protect us all of our loved ones, and save us and them all from every disease and sickness and distress and stress. We ask for your protection and for your guidance and your love. So, brothers, sisters, friends, let me get started with a presentation that I have prepared for this. So I will first share my screen. And this is the screen that I wish to share. The screen of my presentation, and now I will start the slideshow from the beginning. And here we are. Okay, so core beliefs for a new community. The Quran, Surah 2, verses 254 to 260. Many of you will recall that for many weeks now, we have been studying the latter half of Surah Al-Baqarah, which fall under the manner that I've created for this, entitled New Laws for a New Community. So we've dealt with many laws, and then up to last week, we dealt with some history. And now, tonight, we're dealing with verses 254 to 260, which in my humble analysis amounts to core beliefs for a new community. That is, for the new community of Muslims, they were given new laws, and they were also given certain beliefs, and the beliefs are now emphasized in this section we're going to study here tonight. And then towards the end of the chapter, in fact, the last section we will study at the end of the chapter, the core beliefs will again be summarized. But for the moment, we have some stories which will serve to highlight these core beliefs of Muslims. And what are these core beliefs that I think will be highlighted tonight? It is the belief in Allah and in the life hereafter. Belief in Allah and belief in the life hereafter, two of the core beliefs of Islam. So, verse 254, believers, donate out of what we have provided you before that day arrives when there will be no trade or friendship or intercession. The believers are indeed, the disbelievers are indeed the wrongdoers. Allah, there is no God except Him, the ever-living, the eternal. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes Him. Whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth belong to Him. Who is there to intercede with Him except by His permission? He knows whatever is in front of them and whatever is behind them, while they encompass nothing of His knowledge except what He allows. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. Preserving all this never makes Him tired. He is most high and mighty. Let there be no compulsion in religion. The right direction has already distinguished itself from error. Therefore, whoever rejects false deities and believes in Allah has grasped a firm handhold which will never break. Allah hears and knows everything. Allah is the protecting guardian of the believers. He brings them out of darkness into light. On the other hand, the patrons of the disbelievers are false deities who bring them out of light into darkness. These are the ones who belong to the fire. They will abide therein. What do you think of the one who argued with Abraham about his Lord, because Allah had given him the kingdom? When Abraham said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death," he answered, "I give life and cause death." Abraham said, "Allah causes the sun to rise in the east. See if you can make it come up from the west." Thus, the disbeliever was dumbfounded. Allah does not guide wrongdoers. Think about the likes of him who, passing by a township which had fallen into utter ruin, exclaimed, how shall Allah revive this township after its death? Allah caused him to die for 100 years, then brought him back to life. Allah asked him, "How long did you remain?" The man said, "I remained a day or part of a day." Allah said, "Rather, you remained dead for 100 years. Yet, look at your food and drink, which did not become spoiled. Look at your donkey. Look at the bones, so that we will make you a sign for humankind. See how we raise them up and cover them with flesh." When all this became clear to the man, he said, "I know that Allah is able to do all things." Think also about Abraham, who prayed, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." Allah asked him, "Don't you believe?" Abraham replied, "Yes, but I ask so that my heart may be at ease." Allah said, "Suppose that you take 4 birds and train them to answer your call. They will come back promptly on your call, even if you place them on mountains separately. Understand, therefore, that Allah has the might and wisdom to call back the dead." So that's my humble translation of those verses, building on the translation by Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall, but also taking guidance from a variety of translations that are found on the website islamawakened.com. So turning now to the Arabic, I go to this website, alquran.info, and here is the Arabic text together with their transliteration and translation. So we have a chance now to look at this a little bit more in detail. Verse 254, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة والكافرون هم الظالمون. O you who have faith, spend out of what we have provided you before there comes a day on which there will be no bargaining, neither friendship nor intercession. And the faithless, they are the wrongdoers. So now it says here a day, but we know what that means. It's referring to the day of judgment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it in this way, and the translators here have faithfully rendered it without the definite article, a day. So this verse is obviously encouraging us to spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before that day comes, because when that day comes, obviously there will be no trade. So if somebody wants to do some good work at that time, pass out some money, none of that will work, because that's the day on which all of these worldly activities come to an end. That is the life of jaza, of remuneration. And here is the land of work, or amal. And it is here that we have to perform our good deeds. And of course, on that day, there will be no khulla, there will be no friendship. One cannot go to a friend on that day and say, please lend me some good deeds so I can make it into paradise, and then I'll give it back to you. Or, just give me some of your good deeds so that I can go to paradise. Nobody's going to spare the good deeds on that day. That would be a dreadful day for everyone. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from that day. Nor will there be intercession, except obviously with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as is mentioned in the next verse to come. So one cannot rely on the fact that we have been born into a noble family, we have noble ancestors, we have righteous people in our lineage. Somebody is going to plead for us, intercede with us, and beg Allah on our behalf. None of that is going to save us. So we have to do what we can in this life. Going to the next verse. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu al-qayyum la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm lahu ma fi as-samawati wa ma fi al-ard man dha alladhi yashfa'u 'indahu illa bi-idhnihi ya'lamu ma bayna aydihim wa ma khalfahum ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. Allah, there is no God except Him, is the living one, the all-sustainer. Neither drowsiness befalls Him nor sleep. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. Who is it that may intercede with Him except with His permission? He knows that which is before them and that which is behind them, and they do not comprehend anything of His knowledge except what He wishes. His seat embraces the heavens and the earth, and He is not wearied by their preservation. And He is the all-exalted, the all-supreme. Now, this is a very important verse, and it is one that I could have quoted last night if I had more time. Last night, some of you are probably aware, I was in a debate, and one of the topics we debated was, is Islamic monotheism pure? And here is a single verse of the Quran which actually delineates many of the aspects of Islamic monotheism. It declares, first of all, the kalima of Islam, with the words not in the same order, but as the kalima normally is uttered. But nonetheless, the words are all there, and the expression of the fact that there is no God but Allah is clearly there. So instead of leaving the word Allah to the end, as in our kalima la ilaha illallah, here the word Allah has been brought to the fore, Allah, and then it says la ilaha illahu, and the hu refers back to Allah. That's what is called a damir, or a pronoun in Arabic. So that's the first thing, the declaration that there is no God but Allah. And then it tells us that Allah is the living one, the all-sustainer, Al-Hayyul Qayyum. Here it's translated as all-sustainer, but Al-Qayyum could mean that He is everlasting as well. And that is why some of the translators render it here as eternal. Neither drowsiness nor sleep befalls Him. So that's important for us to know, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only alive, but He is alert, and He's aware of everything that's going on. He doesn't fall asleep, nor does He become tired or drowsy. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. So He owns everything. It's not that there is one God that owns part of the universe and some other God owns another part of the universe. No, Allah is the supreme creator and owner of everything, all of the universe, whatever is in the heavens, whatever is in the earth. Who is it that may intercede with Him except with His permission? So here we have the idea of intercession, but it can only be with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. So one might ask then, well, what's the whole point of the intercession? The point may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thereby will honor some of His servants by giving them that chance to intercede on behalf of others. It's not that the servants have some claim on Allah, that because they speak, Allah must listen. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the permission to intercede. And of course, they will only intercede where it is fair and just. So one might even say that even if there was no such intercession, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of His own accord would have forgiven the individuals who are being interceded for. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in a way creating this whole drama. Instead of just simply declaring it on His own accord, I'm forgiving persons A, B, and C, He gives rather permission to X, Y, and Z to intercede for A, B, and C. And so in so doing, He is giving honor to X, Y, Z. And at the same time, He is establishing for everyone to see a certain fairness in the whole matter of His decision in the end, so that everyone can see, okay, the ones who are being interceded for, what does that mean? It means that there is somebody, either a prophet or somebody who is permitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to intercede. Such a noble person is giving evidence in a way to say, Ya Rab, such a person, A, B, and C, were good people. They were doing good things. Please forgive them. Please admit them into paradise. So it's not only Allah's announced decision with which nobody can actually complain, or against which nobody can complain, but it is also ratified. Instead of Allah just pronouncing it on his own, he gives the chance to righteous people to come and ratify what might have been the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any case. And thus it becomes clear to everyone with this drama that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dealing with the world in a fair way. Those who are being forgiven now are those who have recommendations from people who are in a position to make such kind of recommendation, people whose recommendation can be trusted. So to continue, he knows that which is before them and that which is behind them. So he knows what that which is in front, that which is behind us and everyone else, and especially in the case of those who are supposedly the ones who might intercede. So Allah knows all about their affairs, what is in front of them, what is behind them. And on the contrary, on the other hand, they do not know anything. They do not comprehend anything of knowledge except that which Allah wishes. So Allah decides how much human beings could know. And right now, the world is searching for a vaccine, for a cure for the coronavirus and for COVID-19. So the knowledge will come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will come at the appropriate time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits it. Of course, it will come as a result of the struggle and efforts and the study of numerous individuals around the globe. And through their efforts, through their study, the knowledge will advance. But that knowledge is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is given to us as a reward for our efforts. Just as a person goes to work and gets earnings, and in the end, we as Muslims will say that these earnings are by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are rizq, they are provision from Allah azza wa jal. So in a similar way, the knowledge will come from Allah azza wa jal to the right persons, in the right time, in the right amount, and in the right place, and so on. So people cannot get knowledge by themselves without the help of Allah azza wa jal. And then in the last statement here, the last sentence, his seat embraces the heavens and the earth, and he is not wearied by their preservation, and he is the all-exalted, all-supreme. Now, the word translated seat here is kursi in this verse. Kursi in Arabic can mean a chair in modern Arabic. Here it's been translated seat. Many more have translated it as the throne, but there is another word for throne in the Quran, and that is arsh, the arsh of Allah azza wa jal. In this verse, the kursi is mentioned. Well, some scholars say that kursi here refers not to his actual seat, but to his footstool. But many of the translations I have consulted on IslamAwakened.com translated it as throne, and so I felt more comfortable retaining that translation rather than seat, which is given in this one, or a footstool, which has been suggested by some Muslim scholars. But of course, I'm not getting into the dispute of whether it is throne or footstool here. I am content with just simply translating it as throne because many others have translated it that way. And it's not one of those issues that can be actually settled, because we're dealing here with something mysterious pertaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how he exists. And while we know his attributes, it's hard for us to contemplate his actual person and how he exists and how he establishes himself on the throne, and what does that mean. Some Muslim scholars have said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says istawa ala al-arsh, he established himself on the throne, it doesn't mean that he goes and sits on a throne like a king of this world, but it means that he has power and control and dominion over the throne. So as if the throne represents his kingship and he has complete control over that. It's not that he actually goes and sits on the throne, but some other Muslim scholars in our history have said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally sits on a throne. Sometimes they went to the extent of saying that, it's just like a person sits on a saddle, and when the person sits on the saddle, that makes a slight noise as the person's body rubs against the leather of the saddle. In a similar way that that describes or that's how we should understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sits on the throne. Obviously, people have gone to extremes when they talked about these things, because Muslims disputed with each other about these finer points, and people took different sides on the question. And when people took different sides, they also invented narratives to prove their point, and they also exaggerated their side, so that instead of a small difference, it became a big difference. So one reasonable way of dealing with this is to say that it's not to be taken literally. It probably is a figurative thing. It's like when somebody says the hand of God is with you, they mean God's help is with you. It doesn't mean there is a physical hand that we're talking about, or an actual hand, in fact. In a similar way, when we talk about the throne, we're not talking about something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sits on. But some others have said, okay, let's say that he has a throne and he sits on the throne, and take that literally. But at the same time, we won't say that we know what it means. We won't ask how. So the Arabic expression for that is bila kaif, without the howness of it. We just assert because the Quran says it, so we say it along with the Quran, and we're not going to get into any further detail about that. We're not going to start asking, okay, but how does he sit, and what kind of body does he have, and that sort of thing. We just stop right there. That's what the Quran said. We just affirm it, and we move on. So these are different ways in which Muslim scholars have dealt with that. Now, it says then that he's not wearied by preserving the heavens and the earth. Now, a lot of what is said in this passage actually is a reply to what is already known from the other monotheistic traditions. Only by having studied comparative religion do I appreciate these finer points of the Quranic narrative here. If we take it a step at a time, we will see that in every instance, there is a reply in this verse to conceptions about Allah Azza wa Jal in the previous scripture. Start from the beginning. Allah, there is no God but Him. This, as I've stated, is a statement of monotheism. It denies the existence of other gods. That is what is actually called monotheism, and that is pure monotheism. That was the subject of our discussion last night. Saying that there is only one God for us, for example, that is called henotheism. The position that holds that perhaps there are other gods out there, but we're not concerned about that. For us, there is only one God. So as far as we are concerned, we have only one God. So that's henotheism. And there's also a related concept, monolatry, which is the worship of one God only, exclusively. So that's to say, okay, there may be other gods out there, we don't care, but we're just going to worship this one God. That's monolatry. Monotheism goes, it includes obviously aspects of the previous two definitions, but it also goes beyond that by denying the existence of any other God and saying that absolutely there is only one God. So in this case, the Quran has actually gone beyond the previous revelations, because we can only find a handful of passages in the Bible that say that there is no God but the one God. There are verses about henotheism, which says that the God of the Bible is the only God for the Israelites. So, for example, what is referred to as the Shema Israel, the Shema for short, is a passage from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse number 4, which says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone." So that passage seems to me to be a passage that reflects henotheism. It's not there are different ways of translating and analyzing it, but on the whole, it seems to reflect this henotheistic position, that it's not really talking about whether or not other gods exist. It's only saying that for us, there is this one God. This is the God for us. He is our God, and he alone is our God. Now, that's not to deny that there are other passages, especially in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 39, for example, which says that there is no God beside him. So that's a statement of monotheism, denying the existence of other gods and affirming only the one. But as I said, verses like Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse number 39 are rare in the Bible. They are there, but they are few. And more so, we will find verses that reflect this henotheism, pronouncing belief in one God for us. And there was also the expression of monolatry, the worship of only one God exclusively, while not at the same time denying that there are other gods out there who are worshipped by other individuals, and even in a way maybe acknowledging that it's fine that those other individuals are worshiping their God, but for us, we're just going to worship our one God. So there are passages like that as well. Now, the Quran goes beyond that in reflecting the kalima. As I said, in this passage, the kalima is expressed not in the usual sequence of words that we're accustomed to, but we have that exact sequence of words in two passages in the Quran, in Surah 37 and also in Surah 47. And many more times we have in the Quran, some 34 other times, an expression like we have here, saying that there is no God except Allah, even with different wordings. So that is a very strong expression of monotheism. And saying that Allah is the living one is very important, and that he is Al-Qayyum, he lasts forever. So he's the living one. Why is this important? Because some people have said that God became a man and then God died. So then the question is, how could he actually have been God in the first place if he dies? Because to live is one of the essential attributes of God. It is not something simply that God can give up and decide to die. So this is a philosophical concept about the necessary attributes of God. And here we have it expressed here in the Quran that Allah is living and he's Al-Qayyum, which means he will last forever. He's not going to die. Neither drowsiness befalls him nor sleep. Now, we find in the New Testament that Jesus, on whom be peace, for example, was asleep on a boat. So how can one say that he is God? These are questions that come out of this single verse here. And nor does he sleep. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. And here we will find that there are passages in the Old Testament which indicate that some people have some of the land that God has given them, and some other people have some of the land that their God has given them. And this seems to be accepted in some passages. Of course, that's not the overall teaching of the Bible as a whole. The Bible has come a long way, and various writers over time have improved upon that narrative, and they have given us statements of monotheism, and that becomes the final verdict among Jews today and among Christians, that the other gods don't matter, and they don't really exist in fact, and only one God in fact exists. So now, who is it that may intercede with him except with his permission? And here too, we find that in the Bible, Isa alayhi salam is shown to be an intercessor with God, according to the Johannine writings in the New Testament. But Allah is saying, there's no one to intercede except with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether it's Isa alayhi salam or another prophet, even our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they don't have that automatic right. It is only by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then to continue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has full knowledge and so on. So I'm going to move on from that. You get the picture. So that's a very comprehensive verse, and it encapsulates many aspects of Islamic monotheism. Now, to continue, verse 256, La ikraha fid din, qad tabayyana ar-rushdu min al-ghayy, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدِ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. There is no compulsion in religion. Rectitude has become distinct from error. So one who disavows the rebels and has faith in Allah has held fast to the firmest handle for which there is no breaking. And Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. Let's look at the note that has been given by the translators here. The word Taghut, which is there in the Arabic and translated here as rebels, has been said to refer to Satan, also called the rebel angel, and rebel against God. So the term Taghut can refer also to idol, soothsayer, magician, rebellious humans, and jinn, and also to the carnal soul. And many verses are quoted here in the footnote to explain what a Taghut could refer to. So to put it in a simple way, let's say a false deities. So there is no compulsion in religion. This is the first statement. What does that mean? That means that we cannot compel somebody to be a Muslim, or we cannot compel somebody to remain a Muslim. This is a very important verse for us to memorize. And only this part is necessary, and it will go a long way. If you just memorize this, you will be in discussions and somebody will be talking about Islam and about actions performed by some Muslims that reflect very bad on Islam. And you may want to come out and say there is no compulsion in religion. We are not going to compel anybody to be a Muslim or to remain a Muslim. And how do we know that? Here is the verse of the Quran. So verse number 256 of Surah Al-Baqarah. What does it say? It says, La ikraha fit din. Now, in terms of grammar, there is a strong negation in this statement. This is called in Arabic an-nafyul mutlaq, an absolute negation. Now, that is the same sort of negation that we have in the kalima of Islam. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha, there is no God except Allah. When the la is followed by a noun which is given in what is called mansub in Arabic with the fatha ending, see, normally the word for Allah is Allahu with a dhamma ending. La ilaha gives it the fatha ending. And when this combination occurs like this is called an-nafyul mutlaq. It is an absolute negation. So that kalima is saying there is no God except Allah. That is an absolute negation. And now come to our present verse, verse number 256. La ikraha. So ikrahu would have been compulsion. La ikraha. There is no compulsion. So with the fatha ending here, we have this absolute negation. So this verse, we should appreciate, is absolutely negating that there can be any compulsion in religion. It's absolutely setting the score that freedom is established by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his creatures with regards to his religion. He's not going to compel anybody to be a Muslim or to remain a Muslim. And we see how often this is violated, and we reel from that. And it's puzzling to many that such could be such a clear statement could be violated. But give the book into the hand of an interpreter. The interpreter can make it mean something else. So some interpreters have said, well, there's an exception to this, and then they will cite things from hadith or from other sources to make it appear that there can be an exception. You compel people in certain cases, but we should maintain with the Quran that when the Quran has said something so clearly, you have to have a really good reason for not following it. And we don't have a good reason. We should just simply follow what is said in this verse. There's no compulsion in religion. And why is there no compulsion in religion? Well, the flip side of that is that the truth has become distinct from error. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. That the truth has become distinct from the error. So people can find the truth on their own. We don't have to compel people, and we shouldn't compel. We cannot compel people to accept the truth. We just establish what the truth is, and then it is up to people to follow it or not to follow it. That is their own prerogative. So we leave it at that. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the truth appear so clearly, only the really rebellious ones are going to follow the falsehood, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leaving them to their rebellious ways, but He will take them into account in the life hereafter. That's not our business. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who have faith in Allah whoever has faith in Allah has held fast to the firmest handle for which there is no breaking. So that's like we're holding on, as the Quran says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on, all of you together, to the rope of Allah, and do not be disunited. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling us to that firm handhold. When we have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're holding on to something, to a lifeline that's not going to break. But on the other hand, as we will see in the next verse, that if people follow other deities, then they are going to be leaving that firm handhold and going into darkness. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us all. All right, so to continue, verse 257. Allah is the guardian of the faithful. Oh, let me read the Arabic first. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur walladhina kafaru awliya'uhum at-taghut yukhrijunahum min an-nuri ila adh-dhulumat ulaika ashabun nari hum fiha khalidun. Allah is the guardian of the faithful. He brings them out of darkness into light. As for the faithless, their patrons are the rebels, who drive them out of light into darkness. They shall be the inmates of the fire, and they shall remain in it forever. So here is a nice verse to think about. I'm not saying necessarily memorize this, but if you want to memorize the first portion, that's easy. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. It's just those 4 words, and it gives you a complete statement. Allah is the guardian of the faithful. So in modern times, people ask, do we have a guardian angel? Well, we don't need a guardian angel, though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed angels to guard us as well. But Allah ultimately is our guardian. And, that's a nice statement to quote in Arabic. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. Allah is the wali of those who believe. It's easy to memorize, and it's sweet to pronounce. And it's just wonderful to contemplate. Think about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our wali. He's guarding us. We don't see him. We even forget him. But in all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still guarding us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guard us. So those who put their faith in the false deities, they are taken out from light and into darkness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the other hand, He guides His faithful followers from darkness into light. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that guidance. Verse 258, I think that's where we are. So we've done 56, 57. Yes, now we're in verse number 258. Okay. Alam tara ila alladhi hajja. Alam tara ila alladhi hajja Ibrahim fi rabbih an atahu Allahu al-mulk. إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي وأميت قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Have you not regarded him who argued with Abraham about his Lord, because Allah had given him a kingdom? When Abraham said, "My Lord is he who gives life and brings death," he replied, "I too give life and bring death." Abraham said, "Indeed, Allah brings the sun from the east. Now you bring it from the west." Thereat, the faithless one was dumbfounded, and Allah does not guide the wrongdoing lot. The footnote here, which I have not copied, indicated that Nimrod, known from the Bible and known in Arabic as Namrud, is the one who argued with Abraham. So he's arguing with Abraham. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him powerful, and he thinks, okay, well, I'm mighty. And Ibrahim alayhi salam is trying to give him the da'wah, give him the message of Tawheed, of monotheism. But he's not rallying to that call. He's saying instead, I am great. So Ibrahim alayhi salam says to him, you know what, my Lord gives life and brings death. Now it is related in Islamic stories about this, that Namrud then called for one of his prisoners who was on death row and set him free. So he said, see, I gave him life. And another person who was free, but he had him executed. He said, see, it's within my power. I give death. He obviously interpreted the words in a different way than Ibrahim alayhi salam had meant them. Ibrahim alayhi salam meant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives life and gives death without any means in between. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful over all affairs. It doesn't mean that he takes a person out of death row, or I mean, it can mean that too. And nor does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes an innocent person to be killed. But Nimrod took it in this way. And he tried to, in a way, make fun of Ibrahim alayhi salam for what Ibrahim alayhi salam was saying. Like twisting his words and giving it a different sort of meaning. So Ibrahim alayhi salam changed tactic, and instead of quarreling over the meaning of words, Ibrahim alayhi salam said something else, which that person would not be able to interpret in a different way. And that is the statement that Allah brings the sun from the east, you bring it from the west. And thereat the faithless person was dumbfounded. He couldn't reply. Of course, nowadays we know that the sun does not actually come up in the east and go down in the west. But that's how it appeared to people at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And naturally, he used an argument which would have been suitable for the time and place. We cannot demand of the people at that time for them to think as we think and know what we know. And so based on what they knew, the arguments had to be put forward to them and the message delivered so that the message could be comprehended and appreciated. So to continue, we're getting to the end here. أو كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها قال أن يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها فأماته الله 100 عام ثم بعثه قال كم لبثت قال لبثت يوما أو بعد يوم قال بل لبثت 100 عام فانظر إلى طعامك وشرابك لم يتسنى وانظر إلى حمارك ولنجعلك آية للناس وانظر إلى العظام كيف ننشزها ثم نكسوها لحما فلما تبين له قال أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير. Or him because it's continuing from the previous discourse. Think about this person, about that person. Okay, think about this now. Or him who came upon a township. Now, the him here is footnoted in this translation by these translators to be Uzair. Well, there's a story about Uzair, but of course the name is not mentioned in the text here. So I'm glossing over that. Or him who came. So it could be any person. You can just imagine an individual. An individual is passing by a township, and these are the comments. Or him who came upon a township as it lay fallen on its trellises. In other words, the city is in ruins. This township is in ruins. He said, how will Allah revive this after its death? So Allah made him die for 100 years. Then he resurrected him. He said, how long have you remained? He said, I have remained a day or part of a day. He said, rather, you have remained 100 years. Now look at your food and drink, which have not rotted. Then look at your donkey. This was done, that we may make you a sign for mankind. And look at the bones, how we arrange them, and then clothe them with flesh. When it became evident to him, he said, I know that Allah has power over all things. Now, there's an interesting thing here about the person being asleep for 100 years, and then when he wakes up, he says, I've only been at it for, a day or part of a day. So if you lock a person into a room and there's no sunlight, that person might lose track of time altogether. They wouldn't know when it is day and when it is night. here too, a person who has been put to sleep by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this length of time, when they wake up, they don't realize that so much time has passed. So there's something about human psychology here, which is captured in this verse. But the more important part of the verse, the more important aspect of this verse is to teach us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this power to bring the dead person back to life. So remember, I said we're talking about core beliefs for the new community. So one of the core beliefs is the belief in Allah, in absolute monotheism, which we have already seen from verse 255. And now these stories are emphasizing the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the one who will bring the dead back to life. It is belief in the life hereafter. The verse about Nimrod arguing with Ibrahim alayhi salam, that was about kingship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in total control over all affairs. He's the King of Kings. So we cannot say that because Allah has given us power, we have power over things and we are independent of Allah. No, we are dependent on Allah still. So that's one aspect of monotheism. And now we're dealing with a story here which emphasizes the belief in the life hereafter and the resurrection of the dead. Moving on. And when Abraham said, "My Lord, show me how you revive the dead," he said, "Do you not believe?" He said, "Yes, indeed, but in order that my heart may be at rest." He said, "Take 4 birds, take 4 of the birds, then cut them into pieces and place a part of them on every mountain. Then call them. They will come to you hastening, and know that Allah is Almighty and All-Wise." So this translation follows an interpretation of the verse. I have not followed that in the translation that I gave. I had it read that Ibrahim alayhi salam would place the birds separately on various mountains and then call them back. To me, that's a more rational interpretation of the passage than to say that Ibrahim alayhi salam was directed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cut up the birds and put them on various mountains. Now, of course, that's not to deny that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to bring the dead birds back to life, even after they have been cut up into pieces. In fact, that will emphasize the point even more and show the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I have not followed that because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's more simply a suggestion to Ibrahim alayhi salam to think about this. Now, you can imagine, anybody can imagine this. You don't have to actually do it to see it happening. You can imagine that you train an animal to come and answer your call, whether it is a dog or birds. You train them and they answer you when they come back, when you call them. Now, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created human beings and imbued human beings with the blueprint of life, so he knows everything about the human beings. He knows how to appeal to them. He knows the psychology. So in terms of a living being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, how to influence people. There is this famous experiment by Pavlov showing the dogs meat, and then the dogs salivate on seeing the meat. And a bell is rung in conjunction with this drama. So now eventually the dogs associate the ringing of the bell with the presentation of the meat. So even when the meat is not presented, the dogs start to salivate even by just simply hearing the bell. So now Pavlov discovered how to make the dogs salivate. If a psychologist can do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the psychology of human beings even better than that. And not only does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know how to appeal to the living being after the living being has been constructed, but he knows the entire blueprint of life. So he can bring the entire organism back into existence. That's very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is telling us to think about what we already know and to see what kind of controls we already have on things around us, and just for us to think further and extrapolate and realize that when we talk about the creator of the heavens and the earth, there is no limit to his knowledge and power. So then you know from this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to bring the dead back to life. An interesting aspect of this verse is that Ibrahim alayhi salam is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this question. Now, often we are afraid to ask a question, but sometimes the person thinks, if I ask a question, it might look like I'm a kafir, I'm a disbeliever, so no, I'm not going to ask the question. But we should not remain with doubts. Sometimes we know a thing, but we need to ask just to be absolutely sure. We need to clear out any possible doubts or misgivings or misunderstandings. So there's no harm in asking. And here Ibrahim alayhi salam is asking Allah himself. One might think there is some kind of an affront here. How dare he ask Allah? But no, this is allowed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not rebuke him. Allah asks him, do you not believe? And he says, yes, of course I believe, but I'm only asking to gain satisfaction from my heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving him that satisfaction. Allah did not rebuke him and say, okay, no, you should believe, you shouldn't be asking this question, and how dare you ask. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a reason to believe even further. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clears away his doubt and misgiving. So in a similar way, I believe the imams and so on should be welcoming to people with their questions, and not to stave people off, especially the youth. The youth will have many questions, and things which are obvious to the Muslim adult who has been born in an Islamic environment may not be so obvious to the youth who are growing up in a very different environment. We have to be aware of that. We have to be patient with our kids, and in my case with my grandkids, and be willing to answer questions that we ourselves never thought of. And I have to confess to you, some of the grandchildren are very clever. My grandson Adam has asked me questions that I had to think about, and especially to think about how to convey the answer to a child that young. You will all find that your children and grandchildren are going to ask you questions that we haven't thought about before, and we have to be welcoming to that, just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was welcoming to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and later in the Quran we'll see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was similarly welcoming to Zakaria alayhi salam, and so on. So to question is not harmful. And a convert to Islam, Dr. Jeffrey Lang, had written a book entitled Even Angels Ask. And we have already seen earlier in this same chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, that the angels asked Allah about Allah's intention to create Adam alayhi salam. When the angels ask, are you going to put on earth someone who's going to cause mischief and shed blood? And Allah says, I know that which you do not know. So Allah did not, say something is wrong with the angels for asking. So hence the title of the book, Even Angels Ask. So that brings us to a conclusion of my discussion of these verses here tonight. I want to now summarize where we have traveled and where we need to go. So far we have dealt with most of Surah Al-Baqarah. We have only a few nights remaining to get to the end. One night we will deal with charity. Another night we'll deal with commercial law, and the next night we'll deal with a summary of core beliefs and concluding dua. So we have actually just 3 weeks now in our regular weekly studies to complete the study of Surah Al-Baqarah. So alhamdulillah, we've made good progress here, and I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's brought us this far. And I would invite you to continue to be with us as we continue to study the surah to the end. So that's it then for tonight. Next week, we're going to be dealing with verses regarding charity, a whole long stretch. So that will start with verse number 261 and go on for many verses until we come to the verses that deal with commercial law with interest transactions. So join me again next week. At this point, I'm going to be signing off from the web stream, and I will continue my discussion with those who have joined me via Zoom from the local Toronto and surrounding communities. So for those of you who have joined us on Facebook and YouTube, I want to thank you all for your patient listening and for being with us here tonight. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you all, will grant you his protection from COVID-19, from every other disease and sickness and distress and stress. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfill all of your lawful desires and wishes and du'as. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you every good in this life and the life hereafter. So I'm your brother Shabir Ali signing off. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi